this is Diane from Style Falcon. Welcome back to the tutorial for the Gorgeous Godet top. This module is going to cover making view B, which is the version with the cowl and the long sleeves. Of course, you could also make short sleeves if you wanted to. You can hem that any way you like. The main feature, of course, is this really pretty and very dramatic cowl. We're going to go over how to make both this cowl and the sleeves in this module. There are additional modules that cover construction of the rest of the garment, as well as ones for view A, which include a neckline like this, a neckband like this, and the sleeveless option with the bands, the arm bands. So to get started, take a look here at the cowl pieces. Here's the pattern piece for the cowl, and you'll note that it says to cut 2 on the fold of the fabric. You may think, surely we just need 1 of these, but you actually do need 2, and I'll show you why. Here too, I cut 1 in the regular print that I'm going to be using for this top, and then I cut 1 in a contrasting print. It'll make it a little easier for you to understand what's going on with the sewing of this, and I also think it's just pretty to have this additional pop of color in this cowl. You're going to start by right sides together, sewing the short ends of both cowl pieces. So separately, you're going to sew here along the short end on both of them, and then we'll take you through the next step. Okay, here are the cowls sewn together on the short side. Again, 5/8 inch seam allowance for both of them. And so you really end up with a tube that looks like this, and you'll turn it right side out. And then the other one you have here is also a tube, and leave this one inside out, like the wrong sides together like it is now. So the next thing to do is you're just going to put these together. You're going to put the one tube inside the other tube, and then sew them together. And it'll end up being right sides together. So here we have the right sides, the inside here of this tube, and then the contrasting tube. I've got it like this. I'm just going to put it inside. There we go. And we end up with the two cowl pieces right sides together. And from there, we're going to find the side that has the notches on it. You'll notice on your pattern piece, there's one notch. That's the neckline side, and that's the side that we're going to sew onto the bodice itself. And then the other side is going to form the real drapey part of the cowl. So the next thing to do, you've got this little tube sandwich here, is you're going to sew all along this long seam to sew together these tubes along one side, and you'll sew it along the unnotched side, so the part that will end up forming the cowl in the front. And here's that long seam just sewn up all the way around, so you have one side that's all sewn up, and then the other side is not. So you'll just turn it right side out and give it a good press so that it lies flat to prepare it for sewing onto the bodice itself. Before we sew the cowl onto the neckline, we want to be sure that we've stabilized the neckline area. This is as I noted, a pretty big and dramatic cowl, and it's a little heavy, so a little reinforcement never hurt to keep everything in place. This is a knit stay tape, iron-on stay tape. I happen to like this kind of thing, and I'm just going to, on the wrong side of the bodice, all the way around, just iron on a little bit of that to help keep things together. You could also use very thin strips of knit interfacing or bias cut woven interfacing or woven stay tape. As long as it stretches a little bit, it'll work out perfect. And here's a close-up of what that looks like. This is the stay tape right here. This happens to be an iron-on stay tape for knits, but as I said, you can use a little interfacing or bias cut woven stay tape is fine too. And you're just going to want to go all the way around the neckline, again on the wrong side, and do it within the seam allowance. You're going to need that for your support for the cowl. Okay, so here we are. We have our bodice again with some stay tape or a little bit of knit interfacing in there, and then here's our tube of our cowl. I did a 2-tone, so it would be easy for you to see what's going on. Now we're just going to sew this cowl to the bodice. It's 3 layers of fabric in all because the cowl is 2. So if you're at all nervous about this, if you don't work with knits that often, you can always just baste this whole long seam closed and then sew it onto the bodice if you'd rather. or you can just go for it. And what you're going to do is when you pin it on, you'll match the center back seam. You're going to go right sides together and you'll match the center back seam, and then the notches on the cowl will match the shoulder seam. And that's how you'll know that everything is oriented correctly. So just put your shirt or the bodice inside the cowl. And we're just going to give the whole thing some pins all the way around. So I have this pinned all the way around, and I'm just going to sew it together. If you're doing a two-tone cowl like I am, you'll want to sew it so that the color that you want the cowl to be that will show on the outside is on the top. And that way when it unfolds, it'll unfold with this on the outside. A good habit to get into when you're working with a serger is to always make sure that your work is to the left all the time of your project, so that all the fabric's over here. And that will help prevent you from accidentally serging something you wished you hadn't. Okay, and here we go. You can now turn your top right side out and get a load of your pretty cowl, which is now going to fold nicely in front of your bodice. So from here, we are going to go on to take care of the sleeves. And here's the bodice on the dress form Ruby with the pretty cowl, the contrast showing here on the outside. To go on to the sleeves, here's your sleeve piece. It's just like any other sleeve piece you ever saw. You've got this notch is going to match your shoulder seam, so right here, and then you've got one notch to match the front notch on the bodice, and the double notch to match the bodice on the back, so front and the back. And we're going to just start with by sewing the sleeve itself together. So that's just the long seam here. We're going to do it right sides together, just like this. We're going to do the long sleeve here, seam here on the long sleeve, on both sleeves, and then we are going to set the sleeves in. Got your sleeve, you've got the long seam shown, and now you sewn, and you're going to just turn the sleeve out to the right side, give it a good press, and then pin it into your armhole. Again, it's right sides together, and the notch at the top is going to match the notch at the top of the sleeve, rather, is going to match the notch at the shoulder seam. So put a pin there, and then you've got your double notches in the back and your single notch in the front. So go ahead and give everything a pin. Just another quick little explanation of right way and wrong way with serging. Here we have our sleeve is all pinned in the arm side here. And the way that I'm going to run it through the serger is this way, so that all of the material is over to the left. And the only thing that is coming anywhere near this blade and this needle is just going to be this fabric, and it's very easy to keep track of where things are. Sometimes you may be tempted to do it the other way, serge it this way with the bodice on the top and the sleeve underneath. And if you do that, you will not be able to see where you're going, and it increases the likelihood that you're going to accidentally nick something in the serging. So if you do it this way, I think you'll be happy with the results. So I will just get going here. I like to start with the underarm seam, keep all that stuff together at the bottom. Take it from there. This method also helps you can feel kind of with your fingers where things are in the serging. I just want to make sure that that's nice and flat through there. You can feel along and feel if something is lumpy, it's probably not a good sign. and then just move your fabric, you know, instead of trying to squeeze something through this machine. So as far as you can, and then when you need to move it, you just move your all of your fabric and just kind of keep it moving around, and that is how you can get the sleeve in. Of course, if you're doing this in a sewing machine, you're just going to set it in like you would any sleeve and use, again, the long, narrow zigzag. All right, here's our sleeve. Ta-da! Here's the sleeve. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll put it on the dress form. You can see what it looks like. And here I am with Ruby again, and here's the nice sleeve. You can see how nicely that's set in with our pretty cowl. Here's what the back is looking like at this point. And all that's left to do is hem the sleeves and the hem itself of the bodice. I'm going to take you through how to hem the sleeves here. So I'm going to go ahead and hem the sleeves, both of the sleeves, using the cover stitch. For cover stitch, you have to work from the right side of the garment. So the way that I approach this is to start again at the underarm seam and get everything lined up, and then just very slowly go around, and I have it pinned, I have it all pressed and pinned, and just to feel my way along. And the tricky part of this is lining up the two lines of stitching so that they will overlap properly. So this is where you take your time. And then I will be tying off these stitches, but here's what the cover stitch looks like. It's a nice clean finish, and then on the inside, the thread is covering the raw edge. I'm going to do that on the other sleeve, and then we'll be ready for the final press and try on.